Hello everybody, today we are going to be talking about the latest episode of Euphoria, Trouble Don't Last Always. Now, I am very excited to discuss this because I had an absolutely fantastic time watching this one. I'm going to keep this relatively spoiler-free if you have yet to see the episode itself because I don't know who's going to be watching this. I am going to discuss a little bit about the structure of the episode and a little bit about what happens, but I won't give you details in terms of where certain conversations go and things like that. I will just sort of discuss broad things about the episode because I don't want to spoil things in case somebody who has not seen this great show is watching this review. So, with that said, yeah, I love this. This was a really emotional episode of Euphoria, as the show often is. That's one of the reasons I love this show so much, because it really emotionally resonates with me. I'll sit down and I'll watch an episode, and it just connects. It's not that I've lived the lives of these people, or experienced everything that they're experiencing in the show, but you can connect to certain aspects of their experience and relate it to your own, not even by choice, just by watching the show. You'll be feeling even more for this person in their difficult situation because you understand at least partly what they're going through in some aspect, or at least that's how I experience the show. And what I loved about this episode is that it very much feels like a play in that it is very, very dialogue heavy and it does not move locations very much. If you have watched any of Euphoria, even the first episode, you'll know that that is rare for the show. It is constantly moving to different characters, moving to different locations, going here, there, and everywhere. And in this episode, you stay in only a couple of locations, not going much of anywhere. And of course, the reason for that is because this was made and filmed in the coronavirus pandemic, meaning that they were limited in what they could do and limited in what they could write. But Sam Levinson chose to write about Christmas Eve for Rue and how that went. I love the dialogue in this thing. It's so good and it's so unique to Euphoria because though I of course loved season 1 of the show, you never really got anything like this that just stayed in a very few select locations with very few characters and just let them talk. That's what the show does this time, is it just lets these people talk about their lives and their situations, and throughout those conversations you learn more about these people and what they're going through and their difficult situations. I think everybody in this does a fantastic job. Obviously Zendaya is great. She got an Emmy for her performance in the first season and she absolutely deserves it because what she brings to this show really does elevate it to a certain extent. There are so many elements that come together to lift this show up into something better than it really should be, from the writing and the directing to the performance. It all just works together, and I loved seeing something completely unique and different from the show. These conversations were not only thoroughly engaging, but absolutely heartbreaking as well. There were moments in here where I just started sobbing because I care so much about these difficult situations that these characters were in. If you've seen the first season of the show, then you know where Rue is as a character. You know that she does struggle with drugs and addiction. You know that she is also struggling with her mental health, and you know that there are a lot of things going on here with that character that she is having issues with. Throughout this episode, you really get to dive into that and unpack that and talk about why that is throughout the conversations that are being had here. And I just love the way this thing progresses, you know, the way it moves from this aspect to this aspect to this aspect, and it just continues to go into more deep and emotional and personal aspects of these characters, particularly Rue. One of the things I was worried about going into this episode was that it would just be an episode you could skip. You would watch this episode and go, you know what, I enjoyed it, but do I really need to see this before seeing season 2, after seeing season 1? Is it an essential episode of the show? And while, of course, I have yet to see season 2 of the show, what I can say is that this episode is absolutely one to watch if you watch Euphoria, because it is A, just really, really good, but B, it also gets into why this character is the way that she is, why she is struggling with these things, and it does that in such a fascinating and compelling and emotional way, and I love that. There's a lot that I could discuss here if I was going to go into spoilers, and I don't think I will because I know that there's probably some people watching this who haven't seen the show, and what I'll say if you're thinking of watching the show is that there's a lot of drugs and alcohol and sexual content in this, and if that's not the kind of thing that you want to see while watching television, definitely don't watch the show. it's not for you, and that is absolutely fine. You don't need to see it and then, not like it. Just don't watch it if that's not the kind of thing that you enjoy. But if you're like me and those things don't affect you to the point where you don't want to watch the show, I would highly recommend Euphoria because it is really just an emotional show. I believe that Sam Levinson has said that this show is more about emotional realism than actual realism itself, which makes so much sense because that is the biggest aspect of the show that I really connect to and focus on, is the emotional side, which I really do connect with. And that is true here as well, where I just emotionally connected to this episode. And if that's the kind of show that you want to watch, that you want to enjoy, then personally, I would highly recommend Euphoria. It happens to be exactly the kind of show that I like in terms of how emotionally resonant it is with me, so I love it for that reason. Overall, I loved the Euphoria Christmas episode, Trouble Don't Last Always. There are so many great emotional moments within this that I really enjoyed and appreciated and just loved watching. It was such a fantastic display of an hour of television and what you can accomplish when you just have conversations between people and you just let their lives come out of that. It was so brilliantly handled that I can't help but applaud this episode of the show. And if you've watched Euphoria and somehow you haven't gotten around to watching this special, it comes highly recommended from me. If this show seems like something that you would be interested in, it also comes highly recommended from me. I loved this one, and I'm going to give Trouble Don't Last Always a rating of 9.25 out of 10. And that's the relatively short review of this episode. I don't do reviews of things other than Doctor Who particularly often on this channel, but I love Euphoria, and there was a new episode, so I'm going to talk about it. Why not? I will be back soon with lots more reviews, classic Doctor Who reviews, Doctor Who rankings. Around this time, there should be a New Year's Day special coming out that I will be talking about, of course. And I might also do reviews of other shows as well, like this, where I just talk about something that I really do care about and really do love, because I thoroughly enjoy talking about television, and it's not always going to be Doctor Who, but a lot of it is, let's be honest. So I do hope to see you around for some of that stuff, and if not, that's absolutely fine, so long as you know that I appreciate your time here today. And with that said, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and have a lovely week.